What drives someone to climb to the world's top, risking life and limb? Is it the allure of the unknown, the thrill of conquering the unconquerable, or perhaps a deeper quest to find oneself in the thin air of the world's highest peaks? Mountaineering is more than just a sport, it's a test of human spirit and endurance. But sometimes, the mountains remind us how small and fragile we are. Today, we are diving into 6 of the most harrowing mountaineering tragedies in human history, stories of courage, resilience, and heartbreak that still echo in the valleys below. We explore intense and emotional experiences, highlighting human endurance and tragedy. Watch with caution, as this video reveals the risks and challenges at the edge of human limits. Tragedy on the Eiger, 1936. 4 experienced climbers, Andreas Hinterstoicer, Tony Kurz, Willi Eiger, and Eddie Rainer, set out to conquer the treacherous north face of the Eiger, a challenge that had claimed the lives of many before them in 1936. With high hopes and determination, the team started their ascent. The climb initially went smoothly, and they were on track to reach the summit. However, fate had different plans. As they advanced up the mountain, a sudden rockfall hit Willi Eiger, causing a severe head injury. This unfortunate event forced the team to make a difficult decision. With Eiger unable to continue, they had no choice but to abandon their summit attempt and begin a dangerous descent. As they made their way down, they reached a notorious section now known as the Hinterstoicer Traverse. Earlier in the climb, Hinterstoicer had brilliantly crossed this icy stretch using an innovative technique, but without the fixed rope, the traverse was now impossible to recross. Faced with an impassable route, they decided to rappel further down the steep, unforgiving face of the Eiger. On July 21st, disaster struck most horrifyingly. An avalanche suddenly swept down the mountain, tearing Andreas Hinterstoicer from his anchor and plummeting to his death. In a tragic chain reaction, Eiger, already weakened from his injury, was slammed into the rock wall and killed instantly. Eddie Rainer, who was holding the ropes, was yanked against the rock face with such force that he suffocated. Miraculously, Tony Kurz was left as the only survivor, somehow escaping the avalanche unscathed but now trapped on the mountain. As a freezing blizzard raged on, he was left hanging from the face overnight, battling both exhaustion and the relentless cold. Despite his dire situation, Kurz managed to survive until the next morning, when a rescue team finally arrived. They managed to throw a rope to him, and with what little strength he had left, Kurz tied their rope to his own and began his slow, painstaking descent. For a brief moment, it seemed there was hope, but just as he thought he might survive, Kurz encountered a final, cruel twist of fate. He reached the knot where the 2 ropes were joined and realized he couldn't get his gear past it. The knot became an insurmountable obstacle. As frustration and fear overtook him, he looked up at the rescuers with a mix of despair and resignation. In a faint voice, he said, "I cannot go on any longer." The rescue team, just meters away, could only watch helplessly as Tony Kurz, overwhelmed by exhaustion and the brutal cold, lost consciousness. Hanging from the rope, unable to overcome this last challenge, he quietly slipped away. His tragic death, just within reach of safety, added another layer of heartbreak to the legend of the Eiger North Face, leaving behind haunting questions about what might have been if just a few small details had gone differently. Cairngorm Plateau Mountaineering Tragedy, 1971. The Cairngorm's tragedy of November 1971 remains a haunting chapter in British mountaineering, serving as a stark reminder of nature's unforgiving power. What started as a routine navigational exercise for 6 15-year-old students and their 2 adult leaders quickly turned into a desperate battle for survival amid some of the harshest weather conditions ever recorded in Scotland. The group, participating in an established outdoor program, set out with confidence, well prepared to navigate the challenging terrain of the Cairngorms, a mountain range infamous for its severe weather. These young adventurers were no strangers to the outdoors, having received extensive training. However, as they ascended the exposed high plateau, they encountered an unprecedented blizzard. Winds exceeding 100 miles per hour combined with plummeting temperatures and whiteout conditions, disorienting even the most experienced members of the group. As the storm intensified, the situation grew increasingly perilous. The group aimed to reach Cairngorm, a simple stone shelter that could have provided crucial protection from the elements. Yet, the ferocity of the blizzard made navigation nearly impossible, and the relentless snowfall obscured the landscape, erasing any familiar landmarks that could have guided them to safety. For 2 grueling nights, the group huddled together in a makeshift snow shelter, desperately trying to retain body heat as the storm continued to rage. Their supplies dwindled, and their physical and mental endurance was stretched to the breaking point. Despite their best efforts to survive, the extreme conditions began to overwhelm them. The search effort to locate the missing group became one of the largest ever conducted in the Cairngorms, with over 50 individuals, including military personnel, police, and mountain rescue teams, braving the deadly conditions. Reduced visibility and the high risk of further casualties made the search incredibly challenging. When night fell, the search was reluctantly suspended, leaving the group to endure another terrifying night in the cold. When the search resumed, the rescuers made a tragic discovery. 5 of the students and 1 of the leaders had succumbed to hypothermia, their bodies found huddled together in a desperate attempt to preserve the warmth. Remarkably, 1 student and 1 leader were found alive, though both were severely frostbitten and suffering from hypothermia. Their survival was a testament to human resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The Cairngorm's tragedy shocked the nation and led to significant changes in outdoor education and safety procedures. It underscored the need for greater awareness and preparedness regarding the risks of mountain environments, particularly during winter. The incident also spurred the creation of the Cairngorm Mountain Rescue Association, ensuring that future mountaineers would benefit from more efficient and coordinated rescue efforts. This tragedy continues to resonate as a powerful reminder of how quickly a seemingly routine adventure can become a life-and-death struggle when nature unleashes its full force. It serves as a solemn lesson that the mountains, while beautiful and inspiring, demand the utmost respect and caution from those who seek to explore their heights. Lenin Peak Climbing Tragedy 1974. In July 1974, a group of 8 determined women, led by Elvira Shativa, set out to make history by becoming the first all-female team to climb Lenin Peak, which stands at 7,134 meters. Their mission was not only to reach the summit but to prove that women were just as capable as men in the world of mountaineering. Despite warnings from their base camp meteorologist about an approaching storm, the team pressed on and reached the summit on August 5th. As they stood triumphantly at the top, a fierce storm hit, catching them off guard. They were allowed to set up camp in hopes of riding out the severe weather, but the storm quickly turned deadly. Back at base camp, concern grew as communication with the team was lost. Search teams were swiftly organized, with more than 50 people from Glenmore Lodge, including soldiers, police, and mountain rescue teams, coming together to find the missing climbers. As the weather worsened dramatically and darkness fell, the search had to be called off temporarily. Helicopters were later deployed to continue the search from the air, but the fierce winds and blinding snow made it nearly impossible to spot any signs of life. Meanwhile, the women on the mountain faced a brutal fight for survival. Their small tents were no match for the powerful winds, and without the proper equipment to dig a snow shelter, they were forced to endure the storm's full wrath. Temperatures plummeted, and the relentless snowfall began to bury them. The extreme cold and lack of oxygen at such a high altitude took their toll on the climbers. Tragically, all 8 women lost their lives due to exposure to the brutal conditions, marking the expedition as a heartbreaking loss and a sobering reminder of the mountain's unforgiving nature. In another equally tragic mountaineering incident in British history, a group of school students and their leaders found themselves trapped on a plateau when severe weather hit unexpectedly. Search teams were quickly assembled, with more than 50 people, including soldiers, police, and mountain rescue teams, joining the desperate search for the missing group. However, as the weather worsened dramatically and night fell, the search had to be temporarily halted. Helicopters were later called in to continue the search from the air, battling against fierce winds and heavy snowfall. The leaders and children, stranded in the snow with no way to escape, had no choice but to huddle together for warmth as they waited for help. Snow continued to fall heavily, slowly burying them. Tragically, 5 students and one of the leaders died on the plateau due to exposure to the harsh conditions. One student and another leader managed to survive this terrible ordeal, but both were found suffering from severe hypothermia and frostbite. This event became one of the worst mountaineering tragedies in British history, highlighting the unpredictable dangers of the mountains and the thin line between adventure and disaster. These stories serve as powerful reminders of the courage and determination of those who venture into the mountains, as well as the ever-present risks that come with facing nature's extremes. The human spirit is resilient, but sometimes even the strongest can be overcome by the harshest elements. Dhaulagiri Expedition Tragedy 1979. The 1979 Dhaulagiri expedition stands as a somber reminder of the formidable challenges and devastating risks inherent in Himalayan mountaineering. It is a story that highlights the raw, unpredictable power of nature and the perilous balance between success and disaster. Dhaulagiri, the world's 7th highest mountain at 8,167 meters, is renowned for its striking beauty and the formidable obstacles it presents. Its name, derived from Sanskrit and meaning white mountain, evokes an image of serenity, but the reality of climbing its slopes is far more treacherous. With its towering ice cliffs, steep inclines, and ever-changing weather, Dhaulagiri tests even the most seasoned climbers. In May 1979, an international group of mountaineers from several countries embarked on an expedition to conquer Dhaulagiri summit. They were drawn by the challenge and allure of this imposing peak, following the traditional northeast ridge, a route that would soon reveal its deadly potential. As the team established Camp 2 at approximately 6,400 meters, they were already contending with severe cold and the thin air typical of such altitudes. However, the greatest danger lay above them, concealed within the mountain's vast snowfields. On May 10th, just as the climbers were preparing to push towards higher camps, disaster struck. A massive avalanche, triggered without warning, came crashing down the slopes. The avalanche descended with terrifying speed and immense force, engulfing Camp 2 and burying it under tons of snow and ice. 7 climbers were caught in its path, their tents and equipment crushed under the relentless weight. Those stationed at lower camps could only watch in horror as the snow settled, knowing that any rescue attempt would be nearly impossible given the extreme conditions. In the aftermath, the scene was one of utter devastation. The survivors, left to deal with the shock of the event, were confronted with the harsh reality that their fellow climbers were lost. As the weather deteriorated further, rescue efforts were hampered, and the possibility of reaching the buried climbers became increasingly remote. For days, the mountain remained cloaked in storms, as if Dhaulagiri itself was protecting the lives it had claimed. When the weather finally cleared, recovery efforts were initiated, but the unstable conditions and the threat of further avalanches forced the team to abandon their attempts. The mountain had become the final resting place for the climbers, a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of the high Himalayas. The 1979 Dhaulagiri expedition is not merely a tale of loss. It is a poignant reflection on the inherent risks of mountaineering. It serves as a powerful reminder that even the most meticulously planned expeditions can be undone by the mountain's unpredictable temperament. The climbers who perished on Dhaulagiri joined the long list of those who have given their lives in the pursuit of summits that, while magnificent and awe-inspiring, command the utmost respect and humility from those who seek to conquer them. The 1986 K2 Mountaineering Tragedy. In August 1986, British climber Alan Rouse embarked on a daring expedition to conquer K2 via its notoriously difficult northwest ridge, known for its technical challenges and harsh conditions. After multiple attempts, Rouse decided to turn back from this treacherous route, but his determination to summit K2 remained strong. Refusing to abandon his dream, he switched to the more frequently used, though still perilous, Abruzzi route, joining a diverse group of climbers. This group included Austrians Alfred Imitzer, Willi Bauer, Hannes Wieser, legendary mountaineer Kurt Diemberger, Polish climber Dobroslaw Miodowiczwolf, and British climber and filmmaker Julie Tullis. Each of them carried the weight of ambition, experience, and the desire to conquer the world's second highest peak. As they ascended the mountain, battling the relentless cold and altitude, Rouse, Imitzer, and Bauer reached the summit. At the top, they found Miodowiczwolf asleep in the snow, utterly exhausted from the brutal climb. They persuaded her to descend with them, knowing the summit's dangers did not end once they reached the top. However, Diemberger and Tullis, driven by their resolve, pushed on and summit at 7 p.m., far later in the day than is usually considered safe. As they began their descent, disaster struck when Tullis fell, forcing them to spend the night fully exposed to K2's unforgiving elements. After enduring a night of brutal cold and exhaustion, the group finally returned to Camp 4, where their relief was short-lived. A violent storm soon descended on the mountain, trapping them at high altitude with dwindling supplies. With no food or gas to melt snow for water, their survival depended entirely on the weather easing. Tragically, on the night of August 6th, Julie Tullis succumbed to high-altitude pulmonary edema, a fatal condition caused by fluid accumulation in the lungs, which can strike suddenly at extreme altitudes. In the following days, the storm raged on. Rouse, severely weakened and in excruciating pain, was left immobile in a tent, too weak to descend. When the storm finally broke on August 10th, those who could still move saw their chance for survival. As they descended, Imitzer and Wieser collapsed from exhaustion and perished shortly after leaving Camp 4. The group was further devastated when Miodowiczwolf, struggling on a fixed rope section, lost consciousness and fell to her death. In the end, only Diemberger and Bauer survived the harrowing ordeal, both suffering severe frostbite on their hands and feet, a testament to the extreme conditions they endured. Their survival was nothing short of miraculous, given the circumstances, but the loss of life on the mountain that season Rouse, Tullis, Miodowiczwolf, Imitzer, and Wieser was a stark reminder of K2's deadly reputation. The 1986 K2 disaster claimed the lives of 13 climbers, marking it as one of the deadliest seasons in the mountain's history. This tragic episode highlighted the fine line between ambition and survival in the world of high-altitude mountaineering, where even the most experienced climbers can fall victim to the mountain's unpredictability. Everest Mountaineering Tragedy 1996. The year 1996 is etched in the annals of Mount Everest's history as one of its most tragic, with 15 climbers losing their lives, 8 of them on May 10th alone. This day would become infamous for the catastrophic series of events that unfolded during what was supposed to be a routine summit attempt by 3 different expeditions. On that fateful day, 33 climbers embarked on their push to the summit. However, the climb was marred by delays as critical fixed ropes had not been installed at key points along the route, including the notorious Hillary Step, a 40-foot vertical rock face just below the summit. This oversight led to a perilous traffic jam, with climbers forced to wait in the thin, oxygen-starved air above 8,000 meters, a region ominously known as the death zone. The delays pushed many climbers past the crucial 2 p.m. turnaround time, a guideline intended to ensure they could descend to safer altitudes before nightfall. As the afternoon gave way to evening, the weather took a deadly turn. At 5:30 p.m., a ferocious blizzard engulfed the mountain, bringing whiteout conditions that erased the trail and buried the ropes, leaving climbers disoriented and vulnerable on the south col, just steps away from a sheer drop on the Kangshung face. Visibility was reduced to nearly zero, and the brutal cold, combined with the storm's fury, made survival a desperate struggle. Among those caught in the storm was renowned climber Rob Hall, a seasoned expedition leader from New Zealand. Despite his extensive experience, Hall found himself stranded on the Hillary Step, unable to descend. His last radio transmission to base camp was a heart-wrenching farewell to his pregnant wife. "Sleep well, my sweetheart. Please do not worry too much." Hall's body was discovered on May 23rd, his frozen form still tethered to the mountain he loved. Amidst the chaos, Russian mountaineer Anatoly Bukreev emerged as a controversial figure. A guide for one of the expeditions, Bukreev had descended earlier in the day without supplementary oxygen, a decision that would later be both criticized and praised. When the storm hit, Bukreev made the bold decision to ascend again into the maelstrom, risking his life to save others. He managed to rescue 3 climbers, guiding them back to the relative safety of Camp 4. However, 2 others, too far gone in hypothermic comas, had to be left behind. In a twist of fate that would become one of the most astonishing survival stories in Everest's history, one of the climbers left for dead was found the next day by Sherpas. Nearly frozen solid, with his face encased in ice, this climber American Beck Weathers was assumed to be beyond saving. Yet, in a miraculous turn of events, Weathers revived, stood on his severely frostbitten feet, and somehow managed to stagger back to Camp 4, nearly blind from the effects of the cold. His survival against such impossible odds became a symbol of human resilience in the face of nature's most brutal forces. The 1996 Everest disaster not only highlighted the extreme dangers of high-altitude mountaineering but also sparked a heated debate about the ethics of commercial expeditions on the world's highest peak. It exposed the fine line between human ambition and the mountain's merciless nature, a line that, when crossed, can lead to tragedy on an almost unimaginable scale. The tragic tales of these 6 mountaineering disasters remind us of the mountain's breathtaking beauty and their unforgiving nature. Each story reflects the indomitable human spirit, showcasing courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, they also serve as stark warnings about the risks involved in climbing. As we honor those who lost their lives pursuing their dreams, let us learn from their experiences. The mountains demand respect, preparation, and humility. Whether you are an experienced climber or a novice adventurer, always remember that the thrill of reaching new heights comes with significant responsibility. Embrace the adventure, but never underestimate nature's power. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you think climbers mentally prepare themselves for the extreme conditions they face on high-altitude climbs? Please give your answer in the comment box below. If you are excited to see more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button and like this video. Thank you.